for just a second here and make sure that everything is nice and stable all across the YouTube platform. Welcome in, everyone. I'm just going to give it one more second, just allow some people to go ahead and stream in here. Let me fix my green screen filter there. Welcome in, Broncos country. It has been one hell of a night here in the Mile High City. The Denver Broncos, with the 12th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, selection after a lot of twists and turns in this draft, which included a surprise team in the Atlanta Falcons selecting a very surprise quarterback at number 8 overall in Mike. As soon as Atlanta made that move to get Michael Penix, I knew that the Denver Broncos were not going to be able to get away with trading down in this year's draft. They were going to have to take their guy, and they ended up getting Bo Nix Jr. We're going to break down some of Bo Nix's raw stats here on this stream. We're also going to break down some of his advanced PFF stats. And we're going to go over just what we can expect as a player from Bo Nix. So really, really excited for that, guys. This is a pick that I have wholeheartedly endorsed, and I want to address the elephant in the room right now because the Denver Broncos did allow Brock Bowers to fall to the Raiders. They also elected not to take any of the top edge rushers in Dallas Turner or Laiatu Latu that were on the board. They opted to go with Bo Nix at 12, which some may say is a bit of a reach, but I said this at the time when the Broncos made the pick. As long as Sean Payton feels like Bo Nix is the guy that can be developed into their future franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years, then I am absolutely okay with this move, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. We got Ray in the house. Good to see you, man. Hopefully you are doing well. Unfortunately, I can see right here that my stream is dropping frames again, which absolutely sucks. So let me know if any of that ridiculousness continues and this stream buffers. Hopefully it doesn't. My internet is absolute crap. I'm hoping by next year I'll be out of this apartment and I'll be able to actually get my own internet service provider and I'll be able to get true business class internet. We got Broncos fan back in the house who was a big part of the draft stream tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. Saying, go get your guy, don't get too cute. That's exactly what they did. I could not agree more with that assessment. The Broncos felt that Bo Nix was their guy. It was reported by Adam Schefter that Sean Payton had remorse that he was unable to go up and get Patrick Mahomes in 2017. And Schefter said that Payton had similar feelings for Bo Nix as he did for Patrick Mahomes. Do I think that Bo Nix is going to end up being a Patrick Mahomes caliber player? No, I absolutely do not. But do I think that if Sean Payton is confident enough in Bo Nix that he's going to invest that kind of a draft capital in him, that I think he's going to pan out for this team? I absolutely do. I think Bo Nix has the potential to finally break this curse and finally become the stable quarterback for the Denver Broncos after 8 long, painful seasons of searching through the quarterback desert. Will Bo Nix be the Broncos' starting quarterback right away? I don't know. There's a possibility the team may hold an open competition here and see who wins the job between Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and Bo Nix. Nix will obviously be given the first opportunities to win that job because he has that first-round pedigree. But I also feel like Zach Wilson could be in play here to start week 1. Also, Jarrett Stidham. If there's a guy who's an odd man out here in terms of who might get cut, it might be Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham has a $5 million cap hit. The Broncos already have a very cheap backup option in Zach Wilson. Stidham could be cut by the time we get to the end of training camp if he doesn't outright win the job to be the Broncos' starting quarterback. We got Bo Nix, but a division rival got Xavier Worthy, and then another one got Brock Bowers. So those definitely are moves that hurt the Denver Broncos, but at the end of the day, the Broncos filled their most important position of need. It doesn't matter if you filled the edge rushing need this year. It doesn't matter if you were to even take Brock Bowers at number 12. You don't have a quarterback. You are never going to be a competitive football team if you don't have a quarterback in this day and age. You're just not. So for the Denver Broncos, they prioritized filling the most important piece tonight, and that is getting Bo Nix. Next year, they will have over $100 million in available cap space. They can be extraordinarily aggressive in free agency if they want to. They can get all those positions of need in free agency next year. They know that this year might not be the most competitive year. Wouldn't be surprised at all if it's for that reason that they end up sitting Bo Nix for the majority of the year, just to not stunt his growth and his development. I could very easily see that. I really could. Next year, though, in 2025, that's when the Broncos will be able to pour resources in and build a very competitive football team around Bo Nix. So if Bo Nix ends up sitting on the bench for most of this year and marinating, I don't necessarily think this is the worst thing in the world. We got G Money in the house saying, "Let's go Nuggets." What's going on with the Nuggets game? I'm not sure. I haven't gotten to see what's going on with the Nuggets. Let's see. Nuggets, Lakers. I'm just going to look this up real quick. Oh, let's go. We're taking care of business. Let's go, baby. Get those brooms out here in Denver game 4, and we will be golden. I'm very much a casual basketball fan. I don't analyze it the level I do football. I'm very casual with basketball. I just enjoy watching the game. Speaking of analyze, though, let's jump into Bo Nix, some of his raw stats and some of his advanced PFF stats, and let's learn about Bo Nix, who he is as a player. So bringing in his raw stats right here. If you guys don't know, Bo Nix spent time at 2 different colleges. He came in 2019 with Auburn, spent 3 seasons there, obviously had a really, really stunted 2020 because of COVID. Then in 2022, he transferred to the University of Oregon, where he played for the last 2 seasons. He had that 5th year of eligibility because of the COVID year. So he is going to be an older rookie. He was born February 25th of 2000, so he's age 24. He's the same age as me, actually. So, in many ways, Bo Nix is a grown-ass man. He's married. I believe he's about to have a kid, if I'm not mistaken. So, Bo Nix definitely a lot more mature than some of the other quarterbacks coming out, just from an age perspective. J.J. McCarthy just turned 21 years old. That was one of those things that really sold me with J.J. McCarthy. If we look at just the raw statistics here, you can see a very drastic shift in Bo Nix's stats once he transferred to the University of Oregon. He went from being a 16, 12, 11 touchdown guy to throwing 29 touchdowns in Oregon to 7 interceptions. Now, I will always say touchdown to interception ratio is not a good stat to evaluate quarterbacks on, because a lot of these touchdown passes could have come off of wide receiver screens or the receiver bailing the quarterback out of a bad ball. But Bo Nix definitely had a lot of highlight-worthy throws on his tape, and a lot of throws that you could look at and say, okay, that translates to the NFL level. I could see Bo Nix making that type of throw in the NFL. So touchdown to interception ratio improved, which is very good to see. Also, his average target depth increased to 8.8, so his average yards per attempt right there. So that was very good to see. It was down. His highest was 7.1 in 2021, his last year at Auburn. Statistically, he absolutely broke out, though, in 2023, throwing for 45 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. And even though I said that's not a great way to evaluate the PFF stats that are very similar to this, big-time throws to turnover-worthy play percentage, that's also really, really strong. That's a better evaluation indicator for me than touchdown to interception ratio. We'll showcase that in just 1 second. He threw for 4,500 yards, a 77.4% completion percentage. His long was 84 yards last year, sacked 5 times, quarterback rating of 188.3. That's just ridiculous. Coming over here now to his PFF grades, he had a 92.7 overall passing grade last year. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And those PFF passing grades do not account for throws that aren't necessarily quarterback related. Wide receiver screens, swing passes, screens in general. That doesn't go into account with your PFF passing grade. These were NFL caliber dropbacks that Bo Nix was getting graded on here, and he posted a 92.7 overall PFF passing grade. That's really, really good. He also has a career best 81.6 PFF running grade in 2022. We saw Bo Nix at Oregon. He was a backyard scrambling type of quarterback who made a lot of plays out of structure, whereas at Oregon, he made a lot more plays in structure. He was asked to be able to go through his progressions at the line of scrimmage. Oregon was more of a one read and run, or a one read and screen kind of offense. But there are plenty of instances where he went through his progressions like an NFL style caliber of quarterback, and that's what sold the Broncos and Sean Payton on him. The one thing that stands out to me, Maverick says, is he plays so calm. I totally agree. He's got poise, but he also has a little bit of swagger there as well in his game. He's got that perfect balance of the two, which is exactly what you are looking for in a quarterback. If we come over here and take a look last year at Oregon, he had 20 big-time throws to 5 turnover-worthy plays. If we look at his turnover-worthy plays, they went from all over the place, 18 turnover-worthy plays in 2019 at Auburn, went to 12 in 2020, 14 in 2021, and then they completely went downhill when we went to Oregon. 8 in 2022, and then just 5 in 2023. So that tells me that Nix has become a lot safer and a lot more conservative as a passer, which is really, really good to see, man. It tells me that he's learning the intricacies of reading coverages and understanding the game. That's a big-time benefit of him being in college as long as he has, and playing in both the SEC and the Pac-12. Being in the SEC, he saw a lot of NFL-style looks. In the Pac-12, not as much, but you will still see them, and Bo Nix excelled against those looks. We look at his average depth of target. 9.4 was his career high in his first year at Auburn. Last year was his career low average depth of target. He threw, again, a lot of wide receiver screens, so take that stat for what you will. His adjusted completion percentage last year, 85.5. He had 27 dropped passes. That is absolutely ridiculous. A 7.0 drop percentage. He had 3 batted balls. Sacked 6 times. Pressure to sack percentage, 7.6. That's about where you want it to be. 2.44 second time to throw. So he had adequate time to throw and wasn't holding on to the ball too long. Again, these are all good statistics according to PFF that I can absolutely get behind. Ray says, I love the Nix pick. Family man, the desire to provide for one's family is a hell of a motivator and a strangely underrated quality. Absolutely, man. I totally agree with that. And I think Bo Nix, just in terms of what he's made of, his makeup, I think that he's made of all the right stuff. I really, really do. I'm also going to come in and I'll read some of the notes that I had on Bo Nix. I read this earlier on in my stream when we first selected him. Under strengths, has great processing ability before and right after the snap, allowing him to consistently play on time and capitalize on well-schemed offense. He throws into zone windows and tight man coverage with anticipation, which is a really, really key element that it feels like sold Sean Payton and the Broncos on him. He recognizes and gets the ball out against the blitz better than most college quarterbacks do. Functionally accurate to all 3 levels of the field, short, intermediate, and deep. Instincts and good hip torque give him better accuracy on the move than some of his arm strength should. So that is one positive, is that he's got good lower body mechanics. That's something that can be coached. It's better when it comes naturally to you. Plus ball handling skills and traffic navigation for play action, RPOs, and screens. He's proficient operating the RPO game, something he was asked to do quite a bit at Oregon. Practical NFL athleticism to make plays out of structure and be utilized occasionally in the QB run game. Good creativity and scramble drill to create offense. Had full freedom to make checks and adjustments at the line of scrimmage within his offense at Oregon. He can sense and manage quick pressure without aborting the structure of the play, something that Russell Wilson did not do for Sean Payton last year. Good awareness to eat plays with throwaways, safe throwaways, and is generally outstanding at avoiding negative plays, something else Russell Wilson was not very good at last year. Proven record of coachability and year-to-year development, and is unrecognizable from the player he was at Auburn in really one of the best ways. So that's something very, very good. He's progressed from the backyard, aggressive, reckless style of player that he was at Auburn to more of a safe, conservative, operate in structure quarterback that Sean Payton is looking for. Weaknesses: seldom progressed to a second true read within the pocket at Oregon. lacks a natural presence in the pocket, and has the tendency to bail from clean pockets. He's mostly a first read and run type of quarterback, like we've talked about. He often has an aversion to stepping up in the pocket and can invite pressure by creating rushing lanes for edge rushers. He only has NFL average arm talent, but I think it's more than good enough to be successful at this level. I compare it to Brock Purdy in terms of arm talent. Ball placement has a tendency to be catchable, but not perfect, with plenty of exceptions, including elite high-level throws. And he will also be an age 28 rookie, which some will knock, but the way he operates, the way he's able to throw quickly over the middle of the field in short and intermediate game, he really feels like a poor man's Drew Brees. I also see some Brock Purdy in him. He reminds me of Purdy quite a bit just in terms of the mobility that he has, the ability to extend plays. It's not anything overtly flashy, but he gets it done at the end of the day, and that's what matters to me. Clickbait, let's go. I'm celebrating with some Arby's. Can't wait for that orange cream shake, brother. Yeah, that's more of a summertime thing for them. Hoping that by the draft next year, I'll finally be done over there, man. I can't wait to be done with that industry. I want to be doing this full time this time next year. He's sort of Herbert with a weaker arm, and Drew Brees is mine. Yeah, definitely. NFL Network compared him to Tua Tagovailoa. I can see some Tua Tagovailoa qualities, but I actually think that Bo Nix has a better arm than Tua Tagovailoa does. But the ability to throw with anticipation, especially intermediate routes, in-breaking routes, dig routes, stuff like that, yeah, I definitely see Tua Tagovailoa and, by extent, Drew Brees. They're all that same nomenclature of quarterback. Not the most physically talented in the world, kind of had to learn how to play the position the hard way, but still able to operate very efficiently as an NFL starting caliber quarterback. And with coaching like Sean Payton, who was able to get the best out of Drew Brees, I'm very confident that he's going to be able to get the best out of Bo Nix as well. He's been a consistent leader for a while now. He can do this. I believe so. Mentally, all the interviews that I've seen of Bo Nix, he says all the right stuff. He does all the right things. He conducts himself in a very professional manner, which is not something that we saw the last time the Denver Broncos took a first-round quarterback. We saw a guy who was not committed to the ball field. Paxton Lynch played so much Madden after he got drafted by the Broncos. He had hours and hours and hours of Madden time accumulated, according to media members who were friends with him on freaking Xbox. And he wasn't studying the playbook. This is the exact opposite of that in Bo Nix. We get a football junkie in Bo Nix who's committed to the game. He's committed to watching tape. He's committed to the classroom. That's another thing that blew the Broncos away, according to Adam Schefter. In fact, I'll go ahead and see if I can find that tweet real quick. Here we go. So, according to this tweet right here from Adam Schefter, Denver held a private workout with Nix the day after his pro day. The night before the workout, Denver sent Nix 3 packages of offensive play installation. And the next morning, as they worked it in the classroom, he crushed it, per a Broncos source. Then, they took Nix from the classroom to the field, watched him throw for an hour, and were convinced they had a quarterback that they wanted. So, Bo Nix impressed with what he showed in the classroom and what he showed on the field. That is what ultimately sold the Denver Broncos on him, and that's what gives me the most confidence that it's going to work, is Sean Payton believes he can grasp the, quite frankly, really hard to learn offense that is Sean Payton's offense. The terminology is really, really hard to grasp. He's got, like, I kid you not, 20 different cadences that he uses at the pre-snap at the line of scrimmage, almost as many cadences as the Green Bay Packers. Russell Wilson still struggled with Sean Payton's cadences last year. The Broncos had to strip all that down and simplify it. Cadence is a big weapon in the NFL. You look at how Aaron Rodgers uses it. Bo Nix is already familiar with how to use a pre-snap cadence at the line of scrimmage. A lot of quarterbacks operate with the clap snap count, and Bo Nix did use the clap, but you've also seen him use a verbal pre-snap cadence, identify the Mike linebacker, little stuff like that that's going to make transitioning into Sean Payton's offense a lot more smooth. Having an experienced quarterback in Bo Nix, I think, is also a big selling point here, because Bo Nix has been around the block in college. He's seen all kinds of different defensive looks. He knows how to operate at the line of scrimmage. He had full freedom to do that while he was at Oregon. So that's going to be huge, man. I say he takes over around week 10. I think that's possible. It's all going to depend on what happens in training camp, though. If he wins the job outright in training camp, then we're going to see Bo Nix all season long next year. If the Broncos don't want to be that aggressive with him and they don't give him the opportunity to win that job in training camp, and it is going to be a competition between Stidham and Wilson, then yeah, probably around week 10, somewhere later on in the season. Maybe the Broncos have this long-term vision in mind where they know the roster talent-wise isn't where it needs to be this year. They're maybe thinking next year, when they have over $100 million in money that they can spend in free agency, maybe that's when they'll be more content playing Bo Nix. Either we see Bo Nix for a good chunk of the year, or we don't see him at all this year, I feel like. I'll try to watch him closely the one day I go to training camp this year. Hope to see you out there, man. You know where to find me, right underneath the trees. But yeah, man, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see what the philosophy is for the Denver Broncos and how they want to approach this. I'm very curious if Sean and George talked to the media tonight. That went all over the place. Yeah, they did. They did. So I'm actually, you know what I'm going to do, guys? It's about a 20-minute press conference. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. So let me mute my mic. I don't have my headphones. I'm going to mute my mic right here, and I'll let this play.
Over differential accuracy, third down passing, first in this class, first and end of half. Move that, and you come back with. We felt like the Giants were the joker team in that there were three teams at the front. A little difficult if something happened. I'd be in Birmingham, Alabama, and all of a sudden we have to divert the plane somewhere. So we stayed put, but we're glad it worked out the way it did.
Sean, you talked about trying to spend as much time as possible with all the quarterbacks through this process. As you got to know Bo a little bit, besides the film, what did you take away from just getting to?
He's extremely smart. We tried to send these guys, similar test. It was identical. The night before, 5 p.m., email the test. When I say the test, a series of, call it first, second, third day install, so quite a bit to study. Almost, 5 o'clock when you get 3 days of install and we're meeting at 9 in the morning, it's almost purposely a little bit more than we think. And then at what point do they fail? In other words, it's a lot. And so one part of it, obviously, and a lot of these guys all were really impressive. We got up there 9 a.m. He had the test at 5, and he's sitting there in the office, and you could tell it. He'd probably been in a hotel room, do not disturb, pot of coffee, and just grinding on it. So he's extremely intelligent, real smart. He handled a lot of the protections. I gave you 5 or 6 different statistics. Negative play differential. When you watch him, it's pretty calming. He's very efficient, and it's not just because of you see a ton of NFL throws in their offense. His accuracy set an NC2A record, and then is he making the throws that we're going to ask him to make? And then I think the one thing over the years, if you study it closely, guys that get sacked a lot in college tend to get sacked a lot in the NFL. And sometimes that might be processing. Oftentimes we'll look at the offensive line and he, the ball comes out, and it comes out sometimes in funny body positions. He's got a quick stroke. But the thing that, like, George and I watched his pro day on video, and the very next day we're there for his private, and we tried to count, all right, how many misses were there? And like, well, one of them, like, it's really amazing to see the location. And so when we have critical factors for certain positions, obviously at quarterback, one of the critical factors is, are they accurate? You know, there has to be receivers, you know, do they catch the ball well? Linebackers, do they? So extremely accurate. And then the other thing I would say is you know, we see TV games during the year. The scouts and George and our personnel people go see games. I was surprised at how big he was. You know, he was a little bit taller than 6'2", close to 220 pounds.
He does have a really nice frame, really nice big frame.
Yeah, I mean, I just seen TV games until we started the film process. So
he'll be able to absorb
those are a few of the things. He's the son of a coach. His father played at Auburn. You know, I'd say kind of a gym rat. He's older. He's married. It's going to be hard for anyone to break 61 games unless there's another pandemic, because, you know, he was able to play 5 years. And I also like the fact that, you know, and there's a few of these quarterbacks that were battle tested, meaning they had some adversity, and a handful of them had, and they all, the makeup of this class was, you know, you go into the process, you root for them all, but you're trying to dig, and you came away from it, and the makeup of these guys were pretty strong.
Troy Rink from the Denver Post. A lot of people had mocked Bo Nix to you because of the fit they saw in your offense, Coach. I guess where do you kind of see that generally? And do you think he would have a chance because of the 61 starts to come in and compete to start? Right?
Listen, once we knew this was our target, every time like Chase Daniel got on, or Dan Orlovsky or anyone, this is perfect. I'm like, shh, will you be quiet? You know, and you can't control that. Look,
Sean was afraid of those reports.
I think a lot of times the offense gets built around the player, and so we moved in a direction for years relative to what Drew did, but then when he wasn't starting, or it was Teddy or Jameis, so it wasn't like this guy fits our system, because our system, if let's just say it was another quarterback, you know, we'd want to move. We want the best player, but yeah, and look,
the system should evolve for the player, basically.
We did our best to talk about other players and directions, and it's difficult sometimes with, you know, you just want, you want to, you don't want everyone to know this is the player, but I saw what you guys saw, and I would cringe, and George would cringe, and we're like, you know, and then, yeah, those are things you can't control. Yeah, look, these guys are all going to compete. You know, we just signed. We were real happy to bring Zach on board. You know, and there was no specific timing. That just took a little bit of time. You know, in other words, you know, George and Joe at the Jets, they've been working on that, and so it wasn't like a smoke screen. I know when we signed him, it was closer to the draft, but it could have very well been 3 weeks ago. We knew we wanted to add to the room, and I think I said that much even at the owners' meetings, and we felt we really liked that opportunity. Like there were a number of veteran backups that signed contracts, and yet we saw talent with a player who just 3 years ago was the number 2 pick in the draft, and we really like his traits. And you know, of course, we have Jared here, Stidham, and Ben, and so. You know, Bill taught me a long time ago, let's let him play. And we got to maximize the reps that we have, and let him develop, and that stuff will sort itself out.
Curious, when a rookie quarterback comes in, what are the biggest things you want him to focus on? Bill was talking about it's time to get to work. What does that work look like when you first get here?
Well, I think it's the same stuff that we want Zach to focus on. I'm talking about Zach, you know, he's coming in, he just got in last week, and it's new, and, you know, get acclimated with your teammates. You know, the off-season program, fortunately, we're, you know, 2 weeks in. You know, our rookie camp will be a couple weeks away, and so, you know, it's that onboarding, if you will, of there's like a number of things, you know, getting to know your teammates, getting to know the offense and the coaching staff and the system, and so there's a process to it, and it begins. You know, it began tonight for him, and then, I think he'll be here tomorrow. And then
All right, so Bo Nix should get introduced tomorrow.
a couple weeks from now for the off-season program, and so it starts.
I asked this just in historical, because it's historical. Did you have 6 quarterbacks on your board in the top 12 players? And did your board reflect the run on offense?
I'll let George.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go there. We did have 6 quarterbacks in the first round. We liked all these players. And like I said earlier, I mean, we went through this process with all these players, all really, smart, talented, impressive. We're really happy we have Bo. Like I said, I think he's a really good fit for what we're doing. And Sean's kind of touched on all that.
I think the one thing we did feel, and I think around the league everyone felt, it's a receiver-heavy draft. There were some talented quarterbacks. If you just do the math, then you thought, all right, who's going to be the first defensive player drafted? But I don't think there was a big surprise around the league that when the first 10, 12, that all you had to do is just look positionally. And, we felt there's some good corners in the draft, but there was a palette when that began. So I think when you have that receiver class with the quarterback class, that it is a little bit historic. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. And then you have the tackles. If you were a team needing a starting tackle and you saw that take place. And so I think that league-wide, not just here, I think we felt like there was going to be more offensive players taken, in the first half of the draft.
Sean, you touched on it a little bit. I think only 10 combined sacks in his 2 seasons at Oregon. What are some of the biggest things he does in terms of setting the protections?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think that process varies. Sometimes teams do it with the center. Sometimes teams do it with the quarterback. Then whoever does it to begin with at the line, oftentimes you have to change, into your cadence. If the threat is somewhere else, you've got to change where you're bringing your protection. He does that pretty quickly. He processes fast. So I think sack reduction sometimes is the ability to process and deliver. And so I think that's oftentimes hard for us to measure. But he is someone that can multitask. You see it on film. And, I think that, in talking with Alex even, you try to hit every base and make sure, like, the information you feel that you're seeing is correct. And Alex, went on, like, look, he was in the offensive line room, handling the protections, talking about what we're going to do with these looks. So I think that it's that whole sum total of, and then it's also the ability to say, this is where I want to go within the framework of this pass. And sure, some of those quick screens, but we cut those out. Like, we just looked at those as, like, he was asked to do it and he did it, and evaluated the intermediate to down the field. And really try to evaluate third down, red zone. How's he doing with the game on the line? And he's playing Oregon first time, early in the year, and he needs a drive here in the fourth quarter. You know what? And they get down in field goal range and they miss a field goal. He excelled in those areas, and time and time again. And so I think some of that's processing.
Sean, you've had a lot of success with quarterbacks who've had experience in the league, and now you have both of your first round pick coming in raw. So how does kind of the process of teaching and developing change a little bit when you have this kind of blank slate of a quarterback coming in to learn?
Yeah, good question. I can reference just, a few different places. In New York, when we got Kerry Collins, he'd been experienced, and yet he was new to our system. And we had to, what are the things he does well? Too often we can talk about what they don't. And so we really build around his strengths. And then, in Dallas, Quincy Carter, we signed Tony Romo. We had Bledsoe. We had a number of different players, and we try to build around their strengths. Younger players. Drew was, I think, 4 years in. We were drafts. If you go back in that 06. My first year there, we were evaluating Cutler and Young and Leinart and all of those guys. We had the second pick of the draft, and it wasn't until we were at the combine that the news with Drew's release came, and then even with that, you had to deal with an injury. And so I think the first step with all of these guys, Jared, and any of our guys, Zach, Ben, what do they do well? And there'll be a handful of things all of these guys have in common they do well. And then, even in a preseason game, when one of them's in, you try to build your script around. You want to see them have success. That's our job, I think, as coaches and teachers. So, this is the first time I've been involved or part of a group, part of a team that drafted a quarterback in the first round. We've tried to do it before, and it's exciting. The challenge is exciting, but it's still all right. You want good quarterback play, and the two biggest allies to that, I believe strongly, are good defensive play and a running game. In other words, if you're a quarterback and you're having trouble running the ball, let's get worse. If you're a quarterback and you're having trouble running the ball and stopping people, your job description becomes very difficult. But when you're playing good defense and you have a running game, your job description is a little bit more palatable. And so for all these guys, I feel like they're all young relative to. Jared's been in the league quite a while. He started some games. Ben has actually started some games and been in the league and in another league, but they're all young players. And then Zach obviously has played quite a bit as a young player. But I think that it's the process of the fundamentals of, and it's, you don't assume anything. You start with a proper huddle and cadence. I think, look, the other element is more and more we're seeing these guys in shotgun offenses. And so, we'll be flexible that way. And that was the case really with Russ. And Drew was a little bit more under center. Then later in his career, we began to evolve to more shotgun. So I think it's still about trying to find the things that they do well. And I think most importantly, and we talk about it all the time, is what's the vision.
He was drafted,
and so the scouts scout the player. They read, coaches look at the player. All of us, the front office, what's the vision? What's the vision? How do we, and it's important that that's articulated and to increase your chance of success.
Question for both of you guys. How active were you looking to potentially move up? And then on the other side of the coin, how risky would it have been when Nix was there at 12 to try to still get him and trade down and get some potential additional assets?
We took calls from teams ahead of us. Never really got too serious. We considered moving back, but once Penix went, it got a little, stressful there at the end. You had the Raiders behind us. And so, we just didn't want to overthink it. This was our guy. We're going to take our guy. But we did think about it, not too far. There was a few. We could have moved a couple picks back and maybe got some picks. But at the end of the day, this was our guy. Let's just take him. Let's not overthink it. And we would have been sick, if we lost him just for a couple fifth-round picks or what have you.
I was actively involved in trying to pretend we were moving forward. In other words,
I can confirm this. He was.
It's this time of the year, and it's difficult, and we want to keep our options open. And I would say this for a normal position, and we talked about it. We're entering the draft. You might have needs at rush, edge, tackle, receiver. Then you're really managed. But when it comes to something this specific relative to the quarterback, it's man, you just don't want others to know that this is their focal point. And I think that oftentimes, and look, I get it, but oftentimes you hear this, well, if they don't get one here, they can go back and get this one. And I think that I think that's I heard those same comments. When the Chiefs selected Patrick, and you go back and tune in to everything that was said, well, they could have got him later, and no, they couldn't have. No, they couldn't have. And so let's not worry about, and when we all understand managing the draft, but let's also, let's worry about what it's going to look like 3 years from now, and that's 3 to 4 years from now when this class will be judged, and make sure we get the right guy there. But I agree 100%. We did, we were talking about a couple moves, and then, man, when Atlanta took that guy, now it was like, holy cow. Like, do we have to go up a pick?
And then Minnesota jumped. We're like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah, and so we're paying attention to where the Raiders are, and look, it was a tough 10 minutes or 20 minutes just because now New York was the team. That was the team. If New York took a quarterback, we knew then the three at the front took theirs. New York would have been the surprise team, and there's 3 waiting for 2. And so once New York cleared, I'm sure every team we're talking about felt like, all right. And then Atlanta taking the quarterback, and that's the fun part about this draft. You can't dive into everyone's draft room to know how they feel about someone. So,
Sean Edwarder, ESPN. You mentioned it a minute ago. In all the ways that Bo Nix seems so compatible with your offense, the one where it doesn't seem like a great fit is you use your quarterbacks under center at one of the highest rates in the league traditionally, and he has very little experience doing that. How difficult a transition is that for a player?
I think it's the transition for the coach. He's been under center, and look, we're not going to the moon and back to step under center. But what I said earlier is,
you still have to be able to take a snap from under center, though.
And I think the same way with Zach when he played at BYU, and really Stiddy. And now Jared has had experience under center because he's been at New England and in Las Vegas, and will play under center. But it gets back to developing around what his strengths are, and so look, the job is to pay attention to that and move in those directions, and we'll adjust. But they'll all look. These guys will all take snaps under center. You see it at the Senior Bowl. They do it at their pro day with the workouts. I think they'll be fine. And look, he's got specifically, and I'm just talking about Bo. His warm fuzzy blanket is the center that played with him a year ago. So that'll be nice.
Alex Forsyth. Okay.
All good.
Thank you.
That is the end of that press conference. So, the top things I think we can take away from that are the Broncos first fell in love with Bo Nix after his pro day when they worked him out in the classroom. They gave him all kinds of different install sheets to study, and he executed all of them on the whiteboard to a T. Then they got him on the field. He's got good footwork. He's got good anticipatory throws. He's got good accuracy over the middle of the field, which is a key element that sells the Broncos on Bo Nix, in my opinion. Also, he's taken snaps from under center before. He's used a pre-snap cadence, stuff like that. It seems like it would be a seamless transition to the NFL, but a lot of those guys in college have never done it before, and it's a really, really big-time learning curve to it. So Bo Nix was able to sell the Denver Broncos on just how pro-ready he is at the end of the day. It was also pretty clear that the Broncos did entertain moving back, but they were never really that serious about moving up, according to Sean Payton. Bo Nix was their guy. Things got a little bit stressful for them once Michael Penix went number 8 overall to the Atlanta Falcons. Nobody in the NFL expected that. Then Minnesota comes up with the Jets to number 10 to take J.J. McCarthy. After that, you were a little bit nervous seeing what the Raiders were maybe going to do, for example, but the Denver Broncos got their guy in Bo Nix. Sean Payton is smitten over him. That is very clear, and we'll be breaking down Bo Nix's film over the next few days here on the channel. I've already seen quite a bit of it and feel like there is a lot to like Broncos country. I'm really excited. Hopefully, we finally got our quarterback of the future here. Somebody who can stop that carousel. Somebody who can finally break this 8-year-long curse. And I said this before in the draft stream. There was no way that you could sell it to the fan base by not drafting a quarterback early on in the draft, either in the first round or high in the second round. You had to give the fan base something to have hope and optimism about heading into this season, because Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson sure as hell don't give you hope and optimism, and those guys don't sell tickets. At the end of the day, this is a business entity, and you have to be able to sell tickets and sell the product to your fan base. If the Broncos did not come away with a quarterback tonight, it was going to be a really, really tough sell to this fan base. I can guarantee you that. Now the Broncos have something to look forward to in 2025, in 2024, excuse me, and in 2025 they will have the ability, with well over 150 or over $100 million in available cap space, they will be able to build their roster how they need to build it and get their franchise quarterback. And get the pieces around their franchise quarterback. Sorry, guys, I got caught off guard there for a second. I'm going to go ahead and dip out of here. I've got to get to bed. It's getting late. It is already 11 o'clock at night. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in to the stream tonight. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in to the draft stream. We will be live tomorrow at 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time for day 2 of the draft, rounds 2 and 3. The Denver Broncos will have several picks tomorrow in round 3. There's a possibility they could even trade back up into round 2. We'll see. I'm really, really happy with how things shook out tonight, Broncos country. Yes, we did allow Brock Powers to fall to the Raiders. We could have possibly taken an edge rusher, but none of that matters at the end of the day. The Broncos took a chance to finally stop this quarterback carousel and break the curse. All right, guys. Please be sure to leave a like on this stream before we dip out of here. I would really appreciate it. It's a free and easy way to show your support for the channel. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country, just like you and me. We are also getting really close to 3,000 subscribers, guys. We are hoping to hit that by the end of the draft. We have just under 70 subscriptions left to go. So if you guys have yet to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it, guys. It's free, it's easy, and it's the easiest way that you can show your support. All right, guys, and until tomorrow,